Tonight on 7 News, Midair horror. Planes collide in Sydney's southwest.
We heard a big bang, big loud bang. We've seen a lot of big, thick black smoke coming from the back of our property.
3 people dead. How the tragedy unfolded.
Israel rains missiles on Iran. The revenge attack it promised, now a war on 3 fronts.
A months-long crime spree across Sydney. Crooks caught, $250,000 stolen.
The King heads home from Samoa, but it's our Prime Minister treated like royalty.
Field of Dreams, hopeful buyers queue for days to get a slice of Western Sydney's newest suburbs.
And what a win, the runaway horse that ran away with the Cox Plate, smashing Winx's record.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Angie Asimus and Michael Usher.
Good evening. A community in southwest Sydney has been left reeling after a mid-air tragedy claimed the lives of 3 people.
2 light planes collided and plummeted to the ground, sparking a fire in bushland. Air safety investigators tonight trying to figure out what went so wrong.
Smoke on Sydney's southwestern outskirts, the first sign something horrible had happened.
We tragically located the remains of an aircraft that had caught fire on impact with the ground. That's a sad and tragic outcome.
Just before midday, 2 light aircraft collided mid-air. Locals heard the crash, engines spluttering, then the impact.
We were inside and we heard a big bang, big loud bang, and then we just sort of went outside to have a look, and we've seen a lot of big, thick black smoke coming from the back of our property.
Both planes hitting dense scrub, a vast debris field, 2 crash sites a kilometre apart. It sparked bushfires and a massive emergency response as fire crews put out flames. Paramedics confirmed the worst. There were no survivors.
The first aircraft location, that there were 2 persons that are deceased. And in the second aircraft location, there was 1 person that is deceased.
The paramedics are saying that it was a very confronting scene with patients that they would have liked to assist, but unfortunately there was nothing that they could have done at the time.
This was one of the planes, a yellow Cessna 182 with 2 people on board. It had earlier left Cessnock Airport bound for Wollongong. The other plane, a white-coloured Jabiru, had only just taken off from the nearby Oaks landing ground when they somehow collided. How that happened, now the subject of a major investigation by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau.
We do have witnesses that have reported seeing debris coming from the sky. Those people will be spoken to by detectives and by the ATSB. The airspace that we're currently in at the moment is uncontrolled airspace.
It's understood the smaller Jabiru that left this airfield had only been airborne minutes when the collision happened. It's home to 2 flight schools and a tight-knit community of pilots who all want answers. Tonight, so too do investigators and most of all, families. Now, these 3 victims are all understood to be men, although formal identification is still taking place. Investigators from the ATSB are currently en route to this scene from Canberra, and these 2 crash sites will remain under police guard until they arrive. Over the next few days, they'll be conducting important investigations, sifting through wreckage, trying to recover crucial aviation components. They're also asking for anyone who might have been around this area today, who saw these planes, perhaps witness the impact or even have video of it, to get in touch with police or contact them on the ATSB website.
Andrew Denny at Blimbler Park there. Thank you. In breaking news this evening, a police car has crashed onto railway tracks in Sydney's west. These pictures just in showing the patrol car on the railway line after it smashed through a wire fence and down an embankment. It is thought officers had been involved in a pursuit, but that has not been confirmed by police. There's no word yet on whether anyone was injured.
And overseas now, tensions are tonight soaring in the Middle East once again after Israel unleashed its promised retaliation against Iran. Israel says it targeted military sites, a calculated revenge attack, raising the stakes in the region.
The sound of retribution. Repeated explosions across Tehran as Israel launched a wave of missiles.
Right now, the Israel Defense Forces is conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran.
Those targets confined to Iran's capital and the nearby city of Karaj. From a bunker in Tel Aviv, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his defence minister and military chiefs closely followed the attack. one that involved dozens of fighter jets, Israeli military sources insisting they did not include energy infrastructure or nuclear facilities. Iranian state media initially reported on the blasts.
Minutes ago, several powerful explosions have been heard in Tehran.
Later, Tehran officials claim the blast came from air defence systems around the city, Israel launching its long-promised response to this. An onslaught of almost 200 ballistic missiles fired from Iran on October 1st, most intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome defence system or shot down with American help.
Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond.
Israel's now fighting a war on three fronts, unleashing more strikes against Hezbollah in southern Beirut and hitting a neighbourhood in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip, killing 36 people. Among them, Palestinian officials say more than a dozen children. More roadblocks in the push for a ceasefire that would see the return of around 100 hostages still held by Hamas. Now, both the UK and the US have thrown their support behind Israel, but they've been hands-off in this retaliatory strike in Iran. We are still waiting to see the extent of the damage, but early information suggests Israel has gone after Iran's military assets. That will be a huge relief to Israel's allies, particularly the White House, which has been working behind the scenes to dissuade Israel from targeting nuclear and oil facilities. The last thing the Biden administration wants right now is to be dragged further into this conflict a week out from an election. Michael.
Ashley Mullaney there. Thank you for that in London. A fire at a recycling centre at Matraville sent toxic smoke billowing across several suburbs this afternoon. It broke out in a pile of compressed cardboard shortly before midday, and firefighters worked to contain it for hours. Residents were warned to keep their windows and doors closed. No one was hurt. There's been an outpouring of grief following the mysterious death of Sydney grandfather Edwin Dobbin. Friends and colleagues of the miniature horse breeder say he was a pioneer in the industry and a larger-than-life figure.
How much he was respected, how much he was thought of. Everybody was in shock and, very distressed, and especially because of the nature of the circumstances, that makes it even worse.
His body was found on a rural property in the Hawkesbury yesterday, and a friend of his has been charged with murder. Police have charged 2 men and they're on the hunt for several more over what they're calling an old-school crime spree. For months, a gang targeted pubs across Sydney and the Mid-North Coast, terrorising staff and patrons and raking in almost $250,000.
Handcuffed on the ground and surrounded by police, Ralph Quinlan arrested alongside friend Raymond King, the pair accused of 8 armed robberies in 8 weeks.
I guess you can call it the old school arm hold-up.
The crime spree allegedly started in August in Maroubra, then Petersham, where they fled with $5,000 in cash. 1 month later, there were 2 failed arm hold-ups in Annandale and again in Maroubra. Later that same day, they targeted the Sir Joseph Banks Hotel, fleeing with $15,000 in cash. A whopping $100,000 was stolen from the Canterbury Hotel in late September. The pair made off with another $80,000 from the Mooney Beach Hotel near Coffs Harbour, and finally $35,000 at the Panania Hotel just over a week ago. A total of $233,000 stolen in a robbery rampage.
We will allege the offenders who committed these offences went to a considerable level of planning.
The duo's crime spree came to an end in the early hours of yesterday morning when tactical police stormed a unit here in Waterloo, arresting both men. The pair now facing more than a dozen serious charges. Police seizing a balaclava and gloves, but are still yet to find the weapons used.
We're interested in locating a sawn-off shotgun, a silver handgun and a sawn-off rifle.
The 56 and 45-year-old tonight behind bars refused bail, with up to 4 accomplices still on the run. Taylor Aiken, 7 News.
Police have now laid charges over the discovery of a woman's body at a caravan park in the state's north. The The victim has been identified as Gunnedah local Cheryl Davidson. The accused killer, her 29-year-old son, Callan. Detectives are treating Ms Davidson's death as a domestic violence murder. Mr Davidson faced court today and was refused bail.
Well, voting's about to close in the Queensland election and there are predictions of a change in power. The LNP's David Crisafulli was well ahead in the polls, but after an 11th-hour campaign stumble, both he and Premier Stephen Miles faced the prospect of a minority government.
From kissing a baby to a democracy sausage. This is election day Queensland style. The opposition leader, David Crisafulli, set tongues wagging with his early start.
You can forgive me for getting out of bed earlier and working harder and campaigning every minute of today.
After a campaign defined by youth crime, he cast his ballot in a seat neighbouring a Labor electorate, one that's tipped to fall to prominent anti-crime campaigner Russell Field. His son killed alongside his pregnant fiancée by a teen in a stolen car on Australia Day 2021.
Any crime is too much crime.
There will be fewer victims and I'm so committed to it.
In the past week, Premier Stephen Miles has bench-pressed and jet-skied back from certain defeat, tightening the two-party preferred and primary vote, announcing cost of living measures like 50-cent public transport and free school lunches, and at the 11th hour challenging a Liberal-led government to say whether or not it would vote on rewriting abortion laws.
I know that Queensland women will be asking themselves, am I sure?
The campaign, a test of the national mood, fought on housing, cost of living and health, key issues which will dominate the federal election, as well as the minor parties.
We're very excited to be able to smash apart the two-party system.
Now potential deal makers in the Sunshine State. Hayden Nelson, 7 News.
So let's bring in political editor Mark Riley now. Mark, is Anthony Albanese about to lose a friend at the National Cabinet table?
Michael, good evening to you. It certainly looks that way. It seems that the Labor Premier Stephen Miles has won the campaign here but lost the election. He's certainly thrown a lot of money during this campaign in election sweeteners and tightened the race somewhat, but it seems it won't be enough to stop the LNP's David Crisafulli from being the next Premier of the state of Queensland. The voters here who thanked Anastasia Palaszczuk in 2020 for protecting them through the pandemic are now throwing out the Labor government for not doing enough on two big issues, the cost of living and housing, both of them federal issues. The message for Anthony Albanese, loud and clear. He needs to do something very soon about the cost of living, something big that will grab the attention of the electorate, or the voters might whack him too before the federal election in the first half of next year. Michael?
You'll be watching closely. Mark Riley in Brisbane, thank you.
Australia has joined other Commonwealth countries in agreeing to an ocean declaration, a commitment to reduce emissions and combat rising sea levels.
With the heads of government meeting now over, the King has ended his Australia-Samoa tour, but today it was Anthony Albanese feeling the Pacific love.
Decked out in green and gold, Samoans embrace the colours and spirit of Australia. A warm Pacific Island welcome for the Prime Minister in Satapuala. A special ceremony waiting. Anthony Albanese given a chiefly title, Toiole Sulo Sulo, the highest honour in this village. Drinking kava, gifted a fly whip and staff.
Can I thank you from the bottom of my heart?
The Prime Minister meeting local chiefs.
Thank you very much.
At a ceremony usually reserved for community leaders.
It was a great honour and it's something that I will remember.
On his last day in Samoa, taking selfies. Caught in a scrum of his own making as he handed out footballs.
Here we go, Australia! We are so happy.
These villages are a long way from diplomatic negotiations, but this visit means a lot to the Samoan people who are hoping that economic opportunity follows.
Elsewhere, King Charles was given his second chiefly honour. The monarch and Queen Camilla meeting locals in a village decorated just for them.
Hope that I survived long enough to come back again and see you all.
Their Majesties flying out tonight after days of talks on climate change and regional security. The Prime Minister hoping China sees this. The Pacific Police Officers Australia helped train.
A security threat to any one of us is a threat to all of us.
In Apia, Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
One of Sydney's newer suburbs has turned into a buyer battleground with nearly 40 lots of land hitting the market.
More than 100 people lined up, some waiting for days, all for a chance to find their forever home.
A buyer's battle for a piece of Sydney. A new release at Orchard Hills North between Penrith and St Mary's. First in, first on the board.
Exciting. We are very happy. We were waiting for this day for long.
Missing out previously, they started queuing last weekend.
I spend at least 2 nights here when the preview will start.
Hopefuls camping out until given numbers for the queue.
I have spent 3 nights just staying here from 7 o'clock morning till 7 o'clock at night.
Nirav, number 12.
A bit nervous waiting.
Yeah. Let's see what other people are choosing before me.
But when the choice came...
How does that feel?
Very excited because we got our friend next to us. That is what we want.
21, 22, 23, 24.
Blocks from 300 square metres and $700,000.
This area I was keen to get something around due to new airport.
And in 90 minutes, they were gone.
There isn't a lot of land left in Sydney, so grab whatever you can.
38 lots. George and Tia had number 40.
Just missed out, but everything happens for a reason. You can't dwell on it too much. So the next one will be ours, hopefully.
It's definitely difficult, but it just means that we have to work a little bit harder.
Yeah. And this is what those blocks look like today. The developer plans to have these paddocks ready to build homes in the first half of 2026.
People really are recognising the growth of Western Sydney. And there is really also a lack of housing.
Paul Kadak, 7 News.
More than 2,000 of Sydney's most ambitious athletes have hit the ground running at the Bondi to Manly ultramarathon. There was no shortage of support from the sidelines or on the track. The 80-kilometre race is in its second year and aims to attract a lot more visitors to our city.
It's the one time of year when Bavaria makes its way to Sydney for Oktoberfest. Angelique Opie is at a very busy domain. Angelique, seems to be the place to be tonight.
Well, Angie, it's the biggest Oktoberfest in Australia, in fact, and there's certainly something for everyone. Plenty of beer, food and beats. 18,000 people have celebrated at the domain that has been transformed into a German village. Traditional costumes making quite the appearance too. I'll tell you one thing as well, there are plenty of pints. Organisers say 100,000 will go around.
Everyone's so happy, we're all here.
Oh, it's amazing. We're having the best time with all our friends. Pretzels, the beers, everything's been amazing.
We love the dancing as well. There are still a few more hours until the festival finishes. The motto here is the more the merrier.
And it is certainly looking very merry. Angelique Opie there, thank you. It is time to check the forecast now with Amber Laidler. Well, beautiful night, but it was a lovely start to the weekend too.
It absolutely was, Angie. Michael, good evening. Clear skies tonight and only light winds are making for a lovely Saturday night across the city. Right now, it is 17 degrees in the CBD, though it does feel closer to 12 in gentle northeasterlies. We are still enjoying those settled conditions under the influence of a broad high. That system, though, also directed an extremely dry Antarctic air mass over the country's southeast overnight. So some parts of New South Wales saw minimums plummet. -3 at Goulburn is roughly 8 degrees cooler than normal for this time of year. -1 at Canberra was their coldest October start in a decade. Closer to home at 3.6 degrees at Nowra this morning was the chilliest October start in 16 years. Conditions are set to continue warming up during the day tomorrow. Your Sunday forecast coming up soon, Angie and Michael.
Look forward to it, Amber. Thank you for that. Well, a mother first, a superstar second after the break. Beyoncé's message from the heart as Kamala Harris calls in more celebrity support.
Head-on impact. A bus crash leaves a ute driver rattled but unhurt.
No more ghost town, the big plan to transform Olympic Park, but wait till you hear how long it'll take.
Sydney's most popular beaches shamed. New water quality ratings revealed after sport.
And the end of an era for beloved Sydney grocers, moving on to greener pastures. Well, somehow no one was hurt when a ute collided with a bus southwest of Sydney. It happened around 11 o'clock last night at Eldersley, the ute careering off the road and flipping onto its side out the front of a home. The ute driver was rattled but not injured, as were the bus driver and passengers.
When it's not hosting big events, it's often called a ghost town. But tonight there's a bold new plan to revitalise Olympic Park. The state government hopes to add homes for 25,000 residents, schools and retail centres.
This is about turning Sydney Olympic Park from the vibrant sporting precinct it is into a vibrant residential precinct.
Don't expect too much change in a hurry, though. The plan will guide development through to 2050.
Well, Kamala Harris has shared the spotlight with superstar Beyonce, rallying for reproductive rights in Texas.
Donald Trump called out his opponent for spending time with celebrities as he recorded an interview with America's #1 podcaster.
H-Town.
In her hometown, Houston, Texas,
I'm here as a mother.
Beyonce adds her voice to one of the biggest issues of this US election, abortion.
A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies.
Texas is Republican territory. Tonight's Democratic rally,
reproductive freedom is on the ballot in this presidential election.
A strategic choice to highlight the state's strict abortion ban.
I was finally close enough to death to deserve health care.
Here, there are no exceptions for rape or incest.
Women are unnecessarily becoming ill and dying.
Anti-abortion protesters briefly crashing the event.
We will not get distracted.
This star support behind Kamala Harris not lost on Donald Trump, who was also in Texas today for a podcast interview.
We're rolling. Joining Joe Rogan and his tens of millions of listeners as Trump makes a play for young male voters.
I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular. I just do what's right.
The chat running over, leaving his supporters in Michigan waiting at a rally for almost 3 hours.
We got so tied up and I figured you wouldn't mind too much because we're trying to win.
Late, but still delivering to a thinned-out crowd in a race that remains a dead heat. In Houston, Texas, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Plenty still to come on Sydney 7 News. Up next, an update live from the scene of a double plane crash tragedy in Sydney's southwest.
Matthew Perry's mother reveals the final moment with her son a year on from his sudden death.
Major transformation, the rundown heritage site about to become Sydney's hottest property.
A shock health rating for Sydney's most popular beaches.
The great cheese robbery, but who steals 22 tonnes of cheddar?
Good question. Spectacular entrance, Sydney's newest cruise ship makes a real splash.
And ahead in sport, the Kangaroos set for revenge against the Kiwis. Isaiah Yeo is demanding it.
Returning to our top story now, a light plane collision which killed 3 people in southwest Sydney.
Let's go live to Andrew Denny in Bulimba Park now. Andrew, do we know any more about the victims' identities?
Yeah, well, police are confident they know the identity of one of these men piloting that downed Jabiru aircraft that had earlier left a nearby airstrip here. However, they tell us they are still working to formally identify and contact the next of kin of the 2 others, also thought to be men who were on board that yellow Cessna headed inbound to Wollongong. Now, first on scene here today were neighbours who heard this impact and ran into the bush to try to help. We spoke with some of them who described the horrific scenes they encountered. Emergency services today commending them for their efforts.
I take my hat off to those people that have actually run into harm's way to assist those people. Early stages would appear it's a mid-air collision. Damage at the scene would indicate that the first aircraft has come straight down.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, this crash happened in uncontrolled airspace. That is a key part of the investigation for ATSB investigators who have now arrived on scene.
All right, Andrew Denny there for that update. Thank you. Broken Hill residents are being warned they're not out of the woods yet after a 10th day of rolling blackouts. Generators have been trucked in as workers conduct round-the-clock repairs after a storm knocked out transmission lines in that area.
Transgrid is connecting another 2 banks of portable generators and intends these to be available to meet the evening peak from tomorrow night. We're not celebrating yet. There's still a lot of work to be done.
It's been hinted the area, home to as many as 20,000 people, could be without reliable electricity for weeks.
Matthew Perry's mother has shed light on the heartbreaking last moments she shared with her son. Suzanne Morrison shared the interaction in a candid interview.
There was an inevitability to what was going to happen next to him. But he said, I'm not frightened anymore.
Matthew Perry died aged 54, almost a year ago to the day. First responders have rushed to save a woman trapped in the basement of an Ohio home. Body-worn cameras captured the moment she was pulled from that inferno.
You're good. There you go. You're good. Am I keeping her out? Go.
The woman was taken to hospital for smoke inhalation. 2 dogs inside the home couldn't be saved.
It is embedded in Sydney's history books and dates back to the 1800s. Today 7 News had an exclusive look at the transformation of Putney Wharf, where thousands flocked to the hidden harbour front for a taste of what's to come.
Tipped to be a new prized possession of Putney, waterfront living within a piece of history.
It's 1.6 hectares of land, it's got a 300-metre frontage to the harbour. It's exceptional.
Currently, the Halverson boat shed on the Parramatta River. It's a derelict heritage site ready for one major facelift.
There'll be vitality. You'll have amazing apartments and townhomes to live in.
3,000 people have inquired about the project already, a particular interest of those who live nearby.
Looking to downsize, looking for a bit of a change of lifestyle.
67 homes from 2-bedroom apartments starting at $2 million. 3-bedroom terraces are going for more than $4 million. Homebuyer boaties will have first pick of 36 marina berths available too. The project partly inspired by Woolloomooloo and Walsh Bay.
The retained heritage factor has been inspiration for us.
The process of construction will be no easy feat. Pieces of timber will be pulled apart, refurbished and reconstructed to keep the fabric of what is here now.
The care and intricacy is so important to do. It's not like building something from scratch.
Stage 1 goes on sale next weekend and the precinct will likely be complete by the end of 2026. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
A new lease on life for Sydney's evergreen grocers just ahead. A fresh future for the beloved family business with decades of stories.
A princess on our harbour. Cruise season well and truly back, and Sydney is celebrating.
A slice of aviation history as Qantas retires an iconic jet. We'll take you on board.
And in sport, frustration for the Matildas, a Swiss miss. How do they let Mary Fowler cut loose?
Cruise season's officially underway and it couldn't have had a more spectacular start against the stunning backdrop of our city. The Crown Princess, you can see there, sailed into Sydney Harbour this morning. Not to be missed, water skis, jets, quite a captivating show on the water. The Crown Princess will sail year-round from Australian shores.
After almost a century, the time is ripe for one of Australia's oldest fresh produce merchants to enjoy the fruits of their labour.
But the Galuzzo family wants to reassure its loyal Inner West customers they've handpicked the perfect pair to fill their shoes.
It's the oldest green grocer in Sydney, oldest in the country if you ask them. But there's nothing green about Galuzzo fruiteries.
Pretty much like family here.
They've created something the big chain supermarkets could never replicate.
Pretty much still have customers coming in from when I was born.
But it hasn't always been peachy.
You usually got around between 4 and 5 hours sleep. So, yeah, because your phone would be going off during the night, with stock that wasn't coming in.
After 3 generations of family ownership spanning 90 years, their final season has come to an end.
Our oldest brother passing away last year, Sam, it was that sort of like me and Joe just looked at each other and said, what are we doing?
Brothers Damien and Joe have handpicked another pair of brothers, Daniel and Josh, to take over the reins. They've already been supplying fresh fruit and veg to Sydney's restaurant scene for years and plan to leave the store largely unchanged.
Said, would you like to come out for a chat? And that chat ended up us buying a business.
Already on first-name basis with many of their customers.
Norma Hawkins, the local glebe legend, 102 years young, can recite her credit card number over the phone.
In the fruit game, the apple never falls far from the tree.
Little do we know that the boys went to the same high school as us. Yeah, it was meant to be.
Brianna Jackson, 7 News.
Well, an upmarket cheesemaker in the UK has been sensationally scammed out of nearly 22 tonnes of award-winning cheddar. The manufacturer mistakenly sent 950 cheese wheels worth more than $500,000 to fraudsters posing as French wholesalers.
Shock initially, complete shock, and then sick to my stomach, angry that this has happened to us, embarrassed.
The great cheese swindle even capturing Jamie Oliver's attention. The celebrity chef warning cheese enthusiasts to be cautious of deals that seem too good to be true. Sorry, we had to do it. That's a lot of cheese.
You had to apologise for it too. Again, who steals the cheese? There, very British crime, that one.
Isn't it?
All right, a water quality warning for Sydney swimmers still to come. The big beaches on notice. The pollution problems that are bigger than tar balls.
And you're invited on the farewell tour for a Qantas fan favourite. Don't miss those stories soon on 7 News. But first, Matt's here with sport. Matt, what a story in the Cox Plate.
So good, Angie. They found a new formula for training a winning horse, I think. Yeah, sorry. From throwing a jockey and running wild to smashing a Winx record, coming up, Via Sistina, one of the all-time Cox Plate wins, and raw emotion from James McDonald cracking his Group 1 ton. And this is the stadium the Kiwis say must be home to a new NRL team. Via Sistina threw James McDonald to the Moonee Valley turf and bolted on Tuesday. The champion jockey thought their Cox Plate was doomed. Today they reunited to smash a track record set by Winx in one of the all-time great victories in Australian racing.
A full Moonee Valley belted out racing's unofficial anthem. Now bigger than the first Tuesday in November, the Cox Plates Racing's grand final. The $5 million weight for age championship over 2,040 metres. Billed as the best 2 minutes in sport, after all the dramas this week, Via Sistina beat time and rivals to go from good to great.
With 150 to go, she's 5 lengths in front. It's going to be a Cox Plate round, and James McDonald, a century of the very best.
Via Sistina Winx-like, winning in race record time and by an equal record 8 lengths. 3 Cox Plates for James McDonald, the fastest jockey to 100 Group 1 wins.
She won like Winx. She blended them and yeah, it's just a phenomenal performance.
Earlier this week, a fall and serious scare at track work for McDonald and Via Sistina.
I thought our hopes were doomed. 4
Cox Plates with Winx, now Via Sistina. Chris Waller close to tears.
When she got up and James got up, the rest of it didn't care.
In the $2 million Spring Champion Stakes at Ramwick, El Costello earned both jockey and trainer a hat-trick.
El Costello's lifting from Henline, and El Costello won the Spring Champion, fending off Henline.
3 Champion Stakes wins now for a grinning Josh Parr and Anthony Cummings, calmly coping with an elated owner.
Today's race, in the next week, he'll be fine.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Despite having 3 bids rejected so far, the head of New Zealand Rugby League has implored Peter V'landys to put an NRL team on the South Island. Beating the Kangaroos tomorrow will help the Kiwis' case, but Isaiah Yeo and his men have something to say about that.
The scars of the worst defeat in Australia's history are still raw. 12 months on, the side littered with fresh faces wants to create their own legacy.
When you put this jersey on, it's the epitome. It's the absolute sort of the highest peak you can get in this game, and to put in a performance like that was really disappointing. So I'd like to think that doesn't happen again.
Victories for the Kiwi men and women over Australia, along with the success of Up the Waz, has sparked a new generation of fans.
The last time Kiwis played down here only against the Great British Lions, we had a crowd of 6,700 and now we've got a sold out crowd. So just tells you something about the state of the game in New Zealand at the moment.
The NRL has rejected 3 bids for new teams based on the South Island, but New Zealand Rugby League won't stop pushing for a second side in the NRL.
The movement, or the tsunami's moving down New Zealand and taking over, and it's time for a second franchise. The worst thing would be to rush it, but if you're looking at the kind of juncture of the next broadcast deal in 27, 28, that kind of feels about right.
This will be the future jewel in Christchurch's crown, the new $600 million Takaha Stadium, set to be completed in 2026. It'll hold 30,000 people, perfect for an NRL side.
That stadium's going to be amazing. It's 30,000 covered stadium, which is a fantastic facility. It's just like a big mushroom coming out of the ground. It's going to be a really cool city in the next, 5-10 years.
In Christchurch, Jaleesa Rapps, 7 News.
The Matildas and Mary Fowler in particular were held by a stoic Switzerland in Zurich this morning. Coach Tom Samani deflected questions about Fowler's quiet performance.
She's a very talented footballer and still a young footballer. I don't want to sort of overexpose her.
Caitlin Ford earned a penalty and converted for the Matildas late in the first half, but the messy defending that allowed the Swiss equaliser summed up a disappointing result against a team ranked 10 places lower. Like a real-life masked avenger, fringe Boomers forward Keanu Pinder put the hammer down on the Kings in Perth last night.
The pass.
Pinder had 34 points. The Wildcats won 87-84. Sydney go to 5-3 and drop to third place. Sixers captain Elise Perry knows she'll have to lift for the Big Bash in the absence of injured Australian skipper Elisa Healy, who'll miss at least the tournament opener with her foot injury. The only risk in Adelaide today was getting rider's cramp.
I just think the scale and interest in the competition has just gone to a whole other level.
The Sixers play the Renegades at Adelaide Oval tomorrow, part of a triple-header start to season 10 that is streaming live and free on 7plus for the first time. Cam Waters and his monster Mustang mastered the Surfers Paradise streets, one of the great settings in world motorsport, from concrete crunching Toyotas, out-of-control utes, perfectly good Porsches smashed, and Will Brown's qualifying mishap. You wouldn't have thought the 85-lap opener of the Gold Coast 500 would be virtually clean. Cameron Hill had a crack at racing backwards. Only a few mirrors needed replacing, and Waters won it scratch-free from pole to checkered flag.
To a supreme Cam Waters today, who's bolted it together a beautiful victory.
It's the first time every car has finished a Gold Coast race. They go again tomorrow with all bets off. Oscar Piastri denies he's switching from McLaren to Red Bull. The Aussie avoided damage during practice for the Mexico Formula One Grand Prix. Driver fury when Williams' Alex Albon lost control before clipping Ollie Behrman, and he blamed Ferrari's reserve driver.
You can see him moving around.
Idiots.
George Russell sparked up the curb before slamming his Mercedes into the wall. In the next session, only egos and vehicles were damaged. Baseball's World Series, New York v Los Angeles, 3-2 Yankees, last out of the extra innings. Up steps Freddie Freeman.
Freeman drives one. Deep right field. It is gone!
With that Grand Slam homer, the Dodgers lead it 1-0. Pretty good scenes there. But what about Moonee Valley? Chris Waller, a great example to all men, let your emotions out. It's wonderful to see him cry like that.
He's passionate, isn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely is. All right, man.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you for that. Well, the final piece of aviation history is being written tonight as the Boeing 717 completes its last Australian flight.
The unique jet, with its engines at the tail, has been in our skies for 25 years. Its final trip touching down minutes ago.
A farewell tour city to city. Launceston starting the party for an aviation great about to be parked for good. The Boeing 717 making its final rounds today. 25 years, millions of kilometres, and it seems quite a few fans.
Just flown in from Singapore to fly on the last 717.
I've flown 4 sectors today just to be here on this aircraft.
Qantas invited us on the 717's farewell tour from Tassie to Sydney, where the crew prepared the jet for its retirement flight to Canberra. Only 3 airlines still have the 717. Tonight, that shrinks to 2. Its powerful tail-mounted engines provide a fast and loud takeoff, but for the last few rows, they block the view.
It's the start of our next generation aircraft that's coming in with the A220.
The 717 has another piece of history attached. It is the last aircraft on which there was an attempted hijacking in Australia. May 2003, a man pulled sharpened wooden stakes from his pocket and tried to enter the cockpit. Cabin crew stopped him, averting disaster. One was stabbed, the other left with a black eye. A far more peaceful flight today, sending a workhorse of domestic flying out with style. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Popular Sydney beaches Bronte and Coogee have rated poorly for their water quality. The government's latest State of the Beaches survey points to bacteria and pollution in the water, which sometimes makes them dangerous places to swim, particularly after heavy rainfall. The ratings were made before hundreds of tar balls washed up at Coogee earlier this month. Now, Amber's back with the forecast. Amber, what's in store for tomorrow?
Angie, we could see some cloud cover developing throughout the day, but it is looking several degrees warmer. Your detailed Sunday outlook coming up next.
Tonight, 7 News headlines. 3 people have died when 2 planes collided in Sydney's southwest. Police now working to identify the victims and contact family members.
A police car has now been removed from train tracks at Mount Druitt. It was trying to stop a motorcyclist when it left the road.
Israel has begun its revenge attack against Iran with missiles targeting military sites.
And Anthony Albanese has been treated like a chief in a colourful farewell in Samoa. Now, here's Amber with Sydney's weather. Amber.
Thank you, Michael. We're expecting more mostly settled conditions tomorrow, with temperatures to climb back into the mid to high 20s. We reached a top of 21 degrees in the city just before 3 p.m. today, with most Sydney suburbs hovering between 19 degrees along the coast to 22 degrees in the city's west. A cooler 17 was the top today in the mountains. To the satellite image, and a ridge of high pressure extends over the state, generating the mostly settled conditions we've enjoyed today. A cold front and its associated trough are set to cross New South Wales tomorrow. Now, that shouldn't bring too much in terms of showers, but it is forecast to bring a southerly winds change to the state's south during the afternoon. But around the capitals tomorrow, a shower or two, tops of 26 degrees on the way for Brisbane. A partly cloudy 24 expected in Canberra and also in Melbourne. A shower or two likely down in Hobart. Sunny and 26 tomorrow in Adelaide, 28 under clear skies over in Perth, 34 with a shower or two tomorrow in Darwin. If we take a look now at New South Wales tomorrow, thunderstorms are possible over northeastern New South Wales, possibly severe along the eastern slopes between Kempsey and Grafton, with the risk of damaging winds and large hailstones there. It's looking dry, but partly cloudy skies are forecast elsewhere, including here in Sydney. Winds are also set to become northerly overnight, so that breeze won't have nearly as much bite, reaching 26 tomorrow at Manly. On the water tomorrow, those winds will run east to northeasterly overnight, tending north to northeasterly before dawn, running at around 15 knots. That 2-metre southerly swell also set to decrease to around a metre by midday. But back in the city, we are expecting to see some cloud cover developing throughout the day, but it should remain dry, and it's warming up too, reaching 26 degrees tomorrow in the CBD. The west on the way tomorrow to a top of 27 degrees. Clear skies are forecast to linger for the start of the working week, reaching 31 degrees in the west. Just the chance of late showers Monday into Tuesday at this stage, but otherwise it should remain dry until Thursday. Looking pretty good for Sunday, Michael and Angie, though.
Yeah, liking those warmer days. Thank you, Amber. That is 7 News for this Saturday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening.
Weekend Sunrise starts from 7 tomorrow. From all the 7 News team, thanks so much for your company. Have a great Saturday night.
Good night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.